So step one, this is where I'm going to ask you a little bit, if you don't mind, to go into that first file within the ideation of that Google Drive that was sent over to you guys and look at the multitude. So step one is multitudes. So again, please bear with this process. 9 out of 10 times, well, heck, 10 out of 10 times until today, we're in the room with you and we're developing this. I have some photos always attached to these elements because it's important that you recognize the visual capabilities and the importance of the visual culture in which your students, in which we all live in, right? So to make these visible and visual really makes our students, and especially ourselves, much more available to recognize the discrepancies, the differences of who we are. We are so built into a digital, a virtual way that we are taking on information so fast over our phones and our pads and our computers that really we sometimes don't take the time to recognize what's out there. So multitudes is step one, and this is really an additive process, okay? And I'm going to ask you all in your group, if you are in group, I'm going to talk a little bit about this and have you all maybe take a few minutes to try this out for yourself. Not in the same visual process, but obviously for over about 10 minutes or so, I'll let you kind of play with this multitudes design because it's important that you understand the vocabulary. And as you see, we call multitudes a visual continuum of binary questions where participants write their name on cards in a place where they fall on each other in each answer, okay? So what you see is in that file that you have are a series of potential questions you might ask, as well as the visuals that might be set up, okay? So if you look at the picture on the slide, you can see we have a north to south layout of different visuals. Introvert, extrovert, thinker and feeler, and so on and so on. And what you do here is, what you're asking everybody to do is start to place where they lie on this field. And the point being is, we can build this content up. We start to build visual examples of how we might be thinking about group dynamics and who we are. Now granted, there is a sense of why would you do this? That's where ambiguity starts to show in this process. But you need to let people recognize that it's a time for them to kind of break free of expectations and put their ideas, their personalities, and how they identify with onto a visual component. And so if you're looking again at the multitudes that are sent over, you see there's thinker and feeler, listener and talker, creative and not creative, and so on and so on. So right now for this first round, what I'm going to ask all of you in the room to do, and take about 5 to 6 or 7 minutes, and ask each other where you might lie on this continuum of multitudes, okay? Go through the process, and I know you don't have anything visual, so what I'm going to ask you to think about doing instead is looking at that first round, thinker and feeler. Ask each other, or ask yourself, okay, if I'm a thinker or a feeler, and we'll just use numbers instead of visuals because of the nature of this webinar today. A 0 means you're neutral. And we tell you, the middle is not a choice. So if you are thinking, I'm more of a thinker than a feeler, are you a +1 thinker all the way to a +5 thinker? If you're a +5, you ain't got no feelings, okay? And I'm being in jest. But think of, or if you are a +5 feeler, you're identifying more with your heart than your mind. Obviously, a +1 thinker or a +1 feeler is somebody who still might find themselves more analytical, but still has some emotional component. So take a little time, if you don't mind. In the next 5 minutes, I'll play one song. And in that time period, go ahead and try to figure out where you and your crew might live within the thinker-feeler all the way through, if you have time, where you might land in all of these areas. Because there's quite a few, and they kind of get goofy at the end. But don't dismiss even the selfie question. You will find some amazing things about each other here, and this thing that will come in handy as we move forward. So take 5 minutes. Go ahead and build your multitudes. If you have any questions, I'm here on the chat. So fire away for about 5 minutes. All right, folks, welcome back. I hope you've enjoyed the tunes. If you have any requests, by all means, drop them in the chat. I'll be here for you all day. The multitudes, I want to kind of highlight a little bit about them. One more thing before we move on to the next step, okay? Because this is all additive, right? Every element here is going to be complementary to the next step. But even more important, multitudes is additive for an entire semester, an entire summer, For us personally, we use it in two ways here at the IACT. One, we run a very, very high-intensity summer internship program called the Collaboration Accelerator. And it brings 12 students together who have never met each other from all various disciplines. We do the multitudes right off the bat in order to begin to sort of break down some of the concerns, the skepticism, that ambiguity of who they are and what they are, because it really begins, and we leave it on the wall. So what you see in the front there on that image of that first slide is really about what that looks like from our summer process and how students actually, they'll move them throughout the summer or throughout the school year, as we do with some of, I know some faculty and staff use it in their class for a semester, and leave it on the walls in those rooms that they can use them in, put them in, or put them on mobile pieces. Because what ends up happening is that as you can start to see, there are blind spots, and there are voids, and there are holes in some of these continuums of the multitudes that students start to go, oh my gosh, we are lacking this, or we are missing this, or if I need to go to have a meeting with somebody about something, development of a challenge or a capstone or something. Oh, I need somebody with a bigger or more of a listener or a feeler. I know who to go after in that model and bring. So it's really about creating strong group dynamic with the understanding that this is a fluid, growing model. Okay. So hopefully at this point in time you've got some multitudes built up, at least a sample of them. And so moving on now to step 2 of this, what we will be, what we're still in the ideation process, is challenge sharing.